because the video suddenly collapsed back and I can see, no, see now it went back out again.
There's an option to see everyone versus seeing the speaker.
Oh. Where would I find that option?
Well, if you, at the top of the screen, there is a drop down. I have mine on view everyone, but yours might say view who's talking, or maybe view presenter.
It does tell me who's talking, which is kind of neat. But it doesn't, let me see here, view in full screen mode. No, I still only have part of everybody. And there's
Hi, William. This is Ebony. Can you hear me?
Kelly.
Billy? Yes, David just sent you the invite to your email if you want to log in as yourself.
Okay, so I can use my cell phone?
No, I'm talking to William. I'm talking to Bill.
Me, okay. I'll do that right now. So I'll log out, I guess, and then come right back in.
Okay.
And we are live streaming now.
Okay. Malcolm.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I got a signal. I wasn't sure. Malcolm, are you online? So I just can't see.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Very,
Not
very
well.
faintly.
Can't hear me very well. I'm not seeing. Maybe I should log out and come back in again. Will that work?
Let's give it a shot.
There, let's sit there. I still can't see. Okay.
Ah,
Anybody hear me? No.
cannot hear you.
Let's see how that would be in it.
Malcolm, it sounds like we can barely hear you, so you are unmuted, but it's very, very staticky.
Very static. Okay. Still can't hear me, huh?
Is your headset plugged in all the way? That could be the problem.
Yeah, it's plugged in. Yes, it's plugged in.
You may have to go to your sound settings on your computer, and it's possible that the sound.
Well, I was
For-
on a Zoom meeting this morning. Everything was fine. So still can't hear. I was able to get on the test because by the time I found out the test was over with.
While he's doing that, is my voice coming through and video?
It is.
Yes.
Malcolm, if you unplug your headset and talk, do you want to see if we can hear you?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Right.
Better.
Well,
It's
it's
better.
better. There's more volume to you speaking without the headset.
It was better.
Oh, you could hear me?
Yeah,
Now sounds great.
that's
Hold on, whatever you're doing now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I'll take the headsets off.
All right.
I won't pilot my plane.
I think we are in business then. I see Mr. Hogan. I see Mr. Fun. I see Ms. Howes. I see Mr. Velt. I am also present. I'm declaring that we have a quorum. Proceed. Additions to the agenda. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't mean to spring this on everyone, but it's just, I literally had trouble sleeping last night. And I'd like to raise, I don't know even how to describe this. I'd like to raise some issues and about how the November 3rd election is proposed to be conducted, and see if there's any change of heart.
And I think that we'll be dealing with that when we get to what is really going to be between items 4 and 5 now, which is the Mayo letter. And Mr. Garris will be asked to present that. Have all the board members had an opportunity to read that? And I will tell you, it came out in the last hour or so.
What was this,
Yes.
Mike?
It's a Mayo. It's a letter from Mayo.
Oh, yes, I did get that, yes.
Okay. Everybody had an opportunity, has actually seen it. Okay. What I'm thinking is between items 4, the closed session, and item 5, which is the approval, early voting, and so on, the Mayo letter, my intent was used as a platform to address basically the broad issue of how we're going to run the November election. Mr. Hogan, would that satisfy your concerns, raising it at that point?
I could do it then, but this has to do even with the whole mail-in voting, the application or no application type of thing. I'll do it whenever you say.
Okay. I think we're still going to need to send out applications. I mean, people will ask, and we're going to have to send out the application for absentee ballots or mail-in voting. I think it will be more, I think your thoughts would be more effective presented right in that one same package area there, because the mail letter deals with the whole.
Okay, so 4.5, maybe make it.
4.5, right in there.
Thank you.
We have, do we know whether Delegate Guyton is standing by to speak?
Ebony, are you able to see if?
Yes, he is there. Should I make him a panelist now?
Yeah,
It's her.
Are there
Sorry.
Are there other additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to talk about web delivery. Sorry for the echo. I asked at the last meeting how many requests we'd had for web delivery, and we've got the number now. It's 40,000 as of July 31.
Okay.
So I'd like to talk about what we might be able to do to put the brakes on that.
And that's certainly appropriate, especially for this meeting. I'm only pausing because I'm trying to think of whether it should go in at the same time as Mr. Hogan's addition, his thoughts, and the mail letter itself. On the other hand, I think you probably would want to speak about. Here's what I think. We're going to be reviewing the mail-in ballot application. What I propose to the board is that we just look at that in and of itself, because we're going to have an application in and of itself. And then as to matters that go more towards the conduct of the election, Mr. Hogan's concerns, Ms. Howe's concerns about obviously that stage, try to address them all in one area. I don't want to overload that, but it's been clear to me for a while that the centerpiece of the meeting today is going to be the conduct of the November election. And that's implicit in the things that we're looking at. So we may as well address those all at one time and try to deal with other things off to the side. I was going to offer Delegate Guyton the opportunity to speak now, just a matter of courtesy, and before we went into the other matters, if that's convenient for her, her to be, I guess, entered in as a panelist.
Mr. Chair, I think there is one other late issue. Somerset County, I believe, sent in consideration as well, just prior to the meeting. We just got it.
Ms. Guyton send something in?
Somerset County.
When did that come in?
I got the email at 2 o'clock.
Oh, that's why I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, I think the approval of early voting and election day polling places, Anne Arundel County sent something in, but it's not on the agenda. The Allegheny and then goes to Carroll. Anne Arundel County. Yes.
Right.
I do see the letter.
So we have those, at least those two additions, I believe, Mr. Chairman.
Somerset. Missed that one. So Somerset came in at 2 o'clock?
So that's when I got the email from Donna.
It's titled
Yeah,
August 5th State Board
Yeah,
Meeting.
this came in at number 8. I got it. I didn't get it then because I was trying to get on.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the delegate has been made a panelist and is ready to speak if you would like her to now.
Okay. Delegate Guyton?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, Director Lamone, members of the State Board of Elections. I'm Delegate Michelle Guyton from District 42B in Baltimore County. I hope you can hear me. I don't see or hear myself, but I'm trusting I'm there somewhere. Okay, thank you. I thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you and to publicly propose consideration of drive-through or curbside voting in Maryland this November. So I'm very mindful of your time and all of the pressure that you are under, so I'll be brief. I've also provided more information to you about curbside voting and descriptions of how curbside voting is working in other states to Ms. Duncan by email. So hopefully you have that email, letter, and those links in front of you. I would request that information be forwarded to all board members if they don't already have that in their possession. So I introduced the concept of curbside voting this past session to the Ways and Means Committee during a hearing for House Bill 142, which was a bill that was designed to expand voting accessibility for those with disabilities and the elderly. So I've really been surprised throughout this conversation this year that this has not been considered or mentioned as an additional option for Marylanders who wish to vote in person, and maybe more importantly, for poll workers who are worried about safety during the COVID-19 epidemic. So curbside voting has been successfully implemented in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and multiple jurisdictions in Utah, Texas, Colorado, Michigan, and it's been used for years for vulnerable populations in Alabama and Georgia. So the idea has been promoted by both conservative and by liberal advocates. The National Review had an article that I've included in your information, as well as Senator Kamala Harris recently, promoting this as an option for holding elections successfully during the COVID-19 pandemic. And included in the information that I've sent to you is actually a link of a video of how this actually worked in a pilot program in Michigan during the most recent primary election. Basically, it's incredibly simple. A voter drives up, is handed a ballot, they fill that out in the privacy and safety of their own car, and then they can either hand it to a poll worker or submit it to actually enter it into the election machine, depending on how the poll is organized. So current poll places that I've worked in and a lot that we have in our county, I think would be really good options and be able to generally accommodate this option, as could many of our drive-through COVID-19 testing sites. So I'd like to keep that in mind as well. So the reason that I bring you this today is that I'm really never willing to ask my constituents that I'm not willing to take, and I'm not willing to stand in line with a lot of other people at a polling place or to volunteer as a poll worker that I would normally do under the current recommendations. I would be comfortable doing both if we had an option for curbside voting. And so for those reasons, I would really like to ask you to seriously consider the option for the November general elections in Maryland.
Thank you, Delegate. Is there anyone that has any questions for Delegate Guyton? No? We do have the letter. The board members I've noticed have been perusing it. And we appreciate your thoughts on this, Delegate.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm always willing to answer questions or direct you to other people who can.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your time.
The next item on the agenda is I'm debating whether to just move to closed session and then come back. If the board has no objection, I think we'd better serve by going to closed session where we can receive advice from counsel on that, and then come back into session. Is there any objection to doing that slightly out of order on the agenda? Hearing none. I want to let everyone know that I'm looking for something right now. I want to let everyone know that the board will definitely be returning back to session after this closed session. What I can't do is tell you exactly how long the closed session will last. I apologize for that, but there's just no way to really otherwise know it. So with that being said, the board will now consider whether to meet in closed session, consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and consult with staff on potential or pending litigation as permitted by section 3305B7 and 8 of the General Provisions article. Meeting in closed session would allow the members of the board to seek and obtain legal advice with board counsel without waiver of the attorney-client privilege. May I have a motion to meet in closed session?
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Vote. All those in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. The motion having passed, the board will meet in closed session in accordance with exemptions B7, 8, and 15 of section 3305 of the Open Meetings Act. And at this point, I guess I'm turning to maybe Tracy to tell us how we go about doing this. I only pick on you, Tracy, because you actually knew the answer.
It's me. I'm just sending you a meeting invite for the closed meeting. So give me 2 seconds and you'll have it in your inbox.
I appreciate you thinking that I know how to do this, Michael.
Sorry, Tracy, didn't mean to do that.
That's okay.
So this is Linda. We just minimize this, or do we close this and go to the other and then open this up back?
I think you will have to,
I think we want to sign off.
you want to sign off. Those of us that aren't going into the closed session can just sort of hold the line here. And then when you are done closed session, I think you would have to go back to your original link and sign back into this meeting.
I don't have a link for the closed session.
I think Nikki's sending it
Nikki's
now. Is
about to
someone
set
sending
that
it?
right now.
I would just ask all of you who will be participating in the closed session to just close this window. I don't want any inadvertent disclosure of privileged information. So
That's why I asked the question,
Yeah.
Andrea.
That's correct, Linda. This is Fred, correct, Bill? You will need to close this, or you will be heard.
Okay. Good.
Goodbye.
So by close, Fred, you mean leave the webinar, right?
I mean, leave the webinar, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do that just by Xing it out? I guess.
I think, where's the,
Yeah. So
I think if you just X well, you figured it out.
The only people, Kelly, you're in still.
Yeah,
Kelly, you're in.
you're still in.
Oh, leave webinar. Yes.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, that just leaves me.
Tracy, it's just you and me right now, and everyone else that's listening.
I'm here with you, Tracy.
I muted. While we are on break, I'm turning off my webcam and muting
Right.
myself.
Now, this is still being streamed, just so.
Correct.
Andrea, it's Erin. Can you hear me?
Hey, Aaron, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, just not streaming yet.
Do you want to, is there a way to post? So we just stopped the closed session. Is there a way to sort of post online that it's, we're going to come back on in like 5 minutes, like 3 minutes?
We have a chat going with Fred and David, and so Nikki just let them know
Okay.
that we're coming back in 5.
I believe the stream is now open, so you know.
It never closed, Brett. I mean, whoever.
Oh, cool.
It stayed open.
Oh, it didn't. Well, what happened was David put a message up that said that they were in closed session, so I guess he took that down.
So we are live, just so everybody knows right now, okay?
Okay. Can anybody hear me? Am I still muted?
I hear you, Malcolm.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay.
We can hear you, Malcolm.
All right.
This is Pete.
That's
This is
unfortunate.
PJ. Can you hear me?
Yes, PJ, I can hear you.
Great, thank you.
Can't see you though.
I'm sorry, 1 second.
Can you see me now? Not that you want to, but.
We can see you, Malcolm. There you are, BJ.
Yes, PJ.
I don't know why GoToMeeting defaults to, you have to affirmatively say I want to share my webcam.
You know, I want you, the staff, to know that I burned the whole cartridge in printing off the documents. See how thick it is?
Sorry about that.
And I did front and back too, you know, so it's not single page, double page. No, I'd rather have it and be able to peruse it than not to have it, so.
Thank you.
Malcolm, I've stopped keeping my binders and now I'm doing everything digitally. So I made a big transition.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
I see.
Folders. And here's my binder. Because I can't always pull it up digitally as fast as I can by paper. So I grew up on paper. I'm not as young as you.
And we are live now streaming.
Okay. Since I can't really, where this thing is, I can't really tell. I should be up and you should be able to hear me and see me.
We can.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you. I see PJ and I see Kelly and I think somewhere off the screen here is Malcolm. Nope,
That's correct.
I don't know what I just did, but whatever I did, it was really bad.
It's Linda. Make smaller blocks and you can get more people on the screen without being behind your,
I'll be right back.
Somehow I don't have the audio, but I came off of the, oh, there we are. Okay, I just found something that you shouldn't do. All right, Malcolm's here, Kelly was here. I'm sure there he is, there she is.
He's here. We're still waiting for Bill.
Okay,
I don't see Bill on yet.
yeah, I don't see him either.
is Bill on but not visible, or he's just not even on at this point?
I don't see him at all.
Okay.
Oh,
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
I was on that whole time. It wouldn't let me do anything with my audio or video.
You didn't get the message, huh?
What message?
Message that I got earlier.
Oh, I could hear you all talking about me, but I'm like,
Okay, I see we have all the members, and therefore I am reconvening the open meeting. We have a quorum of 5 members, and the next item of business is going to be comments by Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members and staff. I appreciate your indulgence. You know, I literally could not sleep last night. So this falls under the guise of at a wedding, speak now or forever hold your peace. You know, on June 30th, and I'll be as quick as I can, but on June 30th, this board discussed and debated the 3 options for the November 3rd election. We all know how that went. The record is clear that we were unanimously opposed to option 1, a regular election, when we were split between option 2, extensive polling places, and mail all registered voters applications for a mail-in ballot, absentee ballot. The nomenclature is changing, so people know that. And option 3, a moderate number of voting centers and every registered voter being mailed a ballot. So we had no recommendation. Then the governor issued his letter with a combination of option 1 and 2. And since then, we've learned the following, or at least I've learned the following. The data that I saw from earlier today, early voting centers, this is according to data provided by all of the locals, we are 4,177 judges short and 4 early voting sites short, can't be used. Election day, we are short 10,669 judges. And we are short 95 or 99 polling place election day sites. The governor in his letter committed to recruit state employees to be judges. God bless the 1,000 state employees that have stepped up so far. But we are still short, even if all 1,000 of those are volunteering to work early voting and election day. We're still 3,177 judges short for early voting and 9,669 judges short for election day. And this is all assuming that COVID-19 is at its current level or less of an outbreak. Who knows? I'm strictly trying to look at this on a factual basis. SB has notified Department of Budget Management that we will need an additional at least another $20 million to implement this. We now know that mailing applications to all registered voters, and it's going to somewhat be based on how many of them return that application, will cost somewhere between $4 and $7 million. And I hate to throw a monkey wrench in this, but I just got to get it off my chest. I'm pleading one last time for this board to make a recommendation, to recommend mailing every registered voter a ballot and having as many early voting sites and as many election day sites as possible with the staffing that the LBEs can produce. Mr. Chairman, like I said, I don't want to take long, but I think we're at the point of no return after today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
I would like to confirm that. I'm looking at various things here. I see that at the state level, we have over 92,500 people that contacted the virus. And it's anywhere from 1,000 a day to 500 a day. It's continuing to go up. November is in the beginning of the flu season and flu and cold season. That's not going to make it any better. And if you're trying to save money, sending out basically 4 mailings. A mailing for an application to mail it back, a mailing of the ballot and to mail that back. It's 4 mailings. That's twice the cost of just sending out the ballot. People are concerned about people getting ballots. At least you know people are going to be voting. They get the ballots. Okay, so maybe some ballots get lost. How can they vote? Because their vote, I would think, has to be aligned with the name of a voter. It's just not willy-nilly when it comes in. And I look at the health issue, the cost, and making the availability to everyone. And there has been no factual indication that mail-in ballots or mailing ballots to citizens has created fraud. People say it, but there's no statistics to it. There's no factual. And people can subject and make all sorts of suppositions, but there's no data or facts to back it up. And I would like to just second what PJ said, because there's a couple of things that's disturbed me in the last couple of days, that being just one of them. Well, there's a number of things, I mean, a couple of other things relating to the election.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm. Anybody else want to have anything to say? at this point? Okay. I think we're going to be dealing with the substance of the concerns that Mr. Hogan raised as we continue with the meeting here. And how to address the variety of issues. So with that, I would propose to move on to the next item on the agenda. Again, I believe it's the mail letter that's going to provide the platform for the more general discussion here. And I say general, more specific, I should say more specific discussion of the very issues that PJ's raised.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry if I may.
Yeah.
I realize we've got, many decisions to make about, how to proceed. But with a change in the recommendation, that somewhat changes the landscape. Obviously, the governor would need to agree and issue a proclamation. So can I assume by the other members' silence, they do not agree and want to move forward with how the election is going to be conducted as proclaimed by the governor?
I don't mind addressing it, Mr. Chair. This is Bill.
Sure.
I share PJ's concern about how to fully enact what is before us. I still stand opposed to mailing a ballot to every Maryland resident. Again, same reason, due to the roughly million or more unaccounted for ballots that would exist. And I stand where I did before, where I wanted an application to go out, and then I wanted, something like vote centers. But I will say that that's not the letter, and then the subsequent letter that we received from the governor. So I also believe that we have laid out before us by the governor what he's going to do. And I am looking to try to see how to make it enact his wishes in the most possible scenario that we can. That's why, I was looking for lesser vote centers, but if we can have the counties each come to us, which they are today, with a co-location or consolidation, depending on the terminology, I believe that's what the governor's laid out. I don't believe that again, based on what I've seen come from the governor's office, that I don't believe that anything else is going to be fruitful. So I think we need to move to how to make it the best we can. That's my thought.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to, I don't know if there's a good answer, Mr. Hogan, for your question. I think as we start to deal with the issues, we may find a great deal of common ground in terms of how we handle this. I'm certainly hoping that we do. With that, I'm going to move on the agenda to item number 3, mail-in voting. And the first item there is the United States Postal Service letter that we received. And who's going to handle that? Mention it, bring it up. I'm seeing surprise folks.
This is Nikki. I'll talk about it. So we just wanted to share with you a letter that we received from the United States Postal Service, highlighting some recommendations that they have about the mailing schedule, and that encouraging voters to return applications, ballots, anything that's being returned by mail as soon as possible. And I think we just wanted to note it for the record and share it with all of you. And so as we move forward, keeping that in mind in how we are instructing our voters, and any consideration of changes in light of if it changes as we move closer to the election.
Okay. Next item then, unless somebody has any questions or comments. Next item would be approval of mail-in ballot application. Who's gonna deal with that?
So I think Aaron's going to start, and then I'm going to jump in, and we'll tag team it.
Sounds good.
Sorry, I was muted. I just had one question for Nikki on the USPS. Can you speak to what date you think needs to be modified based on that letter, or what dates?
I don't have an answer to that now. I think it's relevant in terms of looking at the application and about the need to get ballots or get the application in soon. So we can certainly take a look at that and make some recommendations. Right now, it's just more informational because it's going to start to impact, again, the application and instructions next.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So who's going to start on? Aaron, you going to actually start it?
Yes,
Okay.
I can do that. So earlier last week, I think you were sent a version of a draft of the mail-in ballot application. Since then, we received some comments and feedback. So an updated draft of that mail-in ballot application was forwarded to you. In case you wonder what all the colors are, the strike-through red language was suggested to be removed. The parts that are highlighted in green were comments from the board members, and anything that was highlighted in yellow is stuff that were verbiage that was asked to be added by an advocacy group.
And just a little background on the advocacy group. So the person that provided some of that, she works with Whitney Cleasenberry and the Help Me Out Aaron Center for Civic Design, who works with Catherine Summers at the University of Baltimore in designing usable and readable forms and envelopes. So that's where those other changes came from, was from somebody who is involved in that work of helping election officials write usable and readable forms. So just a couple comments on some of the suggested changes. On the first page, there's a language about when ballot drop-off boxes are available and that voters would get a mailing. I talked to the board member this morning, and we've agreed to remove that language. Drop-off boxes, the timing of them will be included with the ballot, which is when the voter needs that information. And it will probably be like we did in the primary, a rolling schedule, because we can't deliver all of them on the same day. But we'll have a better idea of what that time frame will be as we get closer. And also, voters who receive a ballot in the mail do not receive what we call the sample ballot or specimen ballot in the mail. So they won't get another mailing in October telling them where the ballot drop-off boxes are. That will be with the ballot. So propose to, not accept that language, and then return in the sentence that says a list of designated drop-off locations will be included with your ballot, which is what we did in the primary and what we fully intend to do again in the general. So that makes the changes in that first paragraph less. And then on the second page, also removing when the ballot will be sent. Appreciate that we really want to tell voters that. It's somewhat of a staggering schedule depending on whether you're a military or overseas voter or a domestic civilian voter. Plus, also by putting a date in there, then are we confusing voters who are filling this out in October thinking that they would get their ballot in September? So just agree to remove that suggestion. And those were the changes that we discussed this morning.
Anyone?
Also, if I just may add one more thing, there's a lot of Twitter and Facebook chat going on that there was a typo in the original. I got it. It said ready instead of red, and actually Malcolm caught that first. So I just want to let everyone know that was fixed and addressed.
I had a couple quick questions. This is Bill. Just realizing this, I got an email today from someone that we don't have anywhere here that when they request a ballot, it's going to go back postage paid. Is that, that's another enticement for them not to go to the internet for a ballot versus them having to pay postage? Is that something easy to add?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I think that's something that we can add. So a prepaid postage envelope is included with a mailed ballot.
Right.
Okay.
But, the other way it is not. My other question was, I know before us with the Mayo letter was the idea of potentially moving the date to request an absentee ballot. And I don't know, Mr. Chair, if this is the time to discuss that, or would that just be a natural change if, and this has to go out. So this is something we would need to take up.
I think my perspective would be that we are going to have to take it up in any event when we deal with address the mail letter, and anything that we do there is going to consequently make changes in whatever it is that our decision affects. So I don't think we need to do it with this and then go there and decide whether we want to do it, address it again. So I'd say don't address it now, deal with it as part of the package, and then we can, it'll make a change in this automatically if we decide to do that. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay, anyone else on these? Anyone else have concerns about any of the language? Staff? Okay.
I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. So I'm assuming from that everybody's comfortable with this document. And bearing in mind that a later decision may change some dates in it, is there any objection to proceeding to a vote of approval on this? Okay. Then the chair would entertain a motion to approve the document voting information for Maryland voters as presented to the board.
Mr. Chair, can I have one more thing? I'm so sorry. On the application itself, can we maybe add the word preferred next to U.S. mail, postage paid? Or something so that, when you're looking at this application, it looks like you have, what you do, 3 options. I was wondering if there's some way there we can just add U.S. mail preferred option or something like that. Would that be difficult, Aaron?
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean to go ahead?
Yeah,
We could add preferred after U.S. mail in parentheses or something like that. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, my mouse was lost.
Okay. You look like you were doing something.
Okay. So
Right.
with that additional, just small addition, just to drive home that we're looking to have mail ballots to canvass.
And I think we'll find out. With that addition, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the voting information for Maryland voters document that has been presented to the board. May I have such a motion?
So moved, this is PJ.
Is there a second?
Second, this is Bill Bell.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is Kelly muted?
I think she
Cannot
is.
hear her.
I can see her lips moving though. Well, sorry, but we can. Okay, so let us put it this way, Kelly. If you are in favor of
Thumbs up.
approval, yep, okay. Just for the record, Ms. Howes has indicated by hand gesture that she approves the application. And did we hear, Malcolm, did we hear from you?
Yeah, yes, you did. Aye.
Okay,
You hear me? You hear me now? I muted myself.
so I believe that the motion has carried at this point.
So I might make a suggestion to Kelly. I had earphones on earlier, and when I unplugged my earphones, they could hear me. I don't know if that would help you or not. If she can't hear me. So it worked. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if she, well, I know she can hear us because she raised her hand to vote. Kelly, if you can hear us, would you please raise your hand again? Okay, can't hear us.
So according to the panel, she is unmuted from the video conferencing perspective.
Yeah, but we'll get this right here.
It's in her chat.
Could somebody maybe send her a
Text.
yeah, thank you. I know,
I will.
because I think she's completely cut off at this point.
I just sent her an internal chat here, but I'm not sure she'll see it.
Wow, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, to the right of the screen.
Huh.
Worked before. I have.
Something JT support?
IT.
IT
I have no
support.
IT support.
All right. I believe Kelly, we know she can't speak to us, and I believe she cannot hear us. And she seems to be, you can hear. Okay. She can hear and she can gesture as to anything, and she's also communicated by holding a sign up to the camera. And so I'm going to proceed with the meeting, and we'll see what we can do. All right, the next item that we're going to deal with is item 2.5, and that is the issue of the Mayo letter. Is Mr. Garris there, available?
Ebony, are you able to unmute David Garris?
Yes, I just did.
Great, thank you. David, are you there? We are not able to hear you. Perhaps you're muted on your device. Aaron, do you want to, Ebony, would you like to try to unmute another guest speaker, and let's see if we're able to hear somebody else? I believe that Yeah, you have the list, I think, so if you want to try one.
I just unmuted Anthony from Wacomico.
Anthony, can you hear us and can you speak, please?
Can anyone hear me now?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
I did it. Thanks for the tip, Bill.
Okay,
Anthony.
we have Kelly. We have Kelly back, but we've still lost Dave.
And we don't have Anthony.
And we don't have, therefore we probably don't have anybody.
So may I suggest that we maybe move to the regulations while maybe we work on technical support to try to get the other people speaking?
Excellent suggestion, Mickey.
Okay.
We move down to item number 6, requirements of election law, article section 10-301C, and proposed changes to Comar 33170201 and 02. And Tracy, would I be right that this one's yours?
Yep, this is me. Thank you.
You're on.
All right. So as you recall at your last meeting on July 23rd, you voted sort of in favor of establishing the early voting centers for Carroll County, but you charged the office with figuring out what regulations had to be amended. I worked with Andrea to figure out what regulations had to be amended. So you have those in front of you. It's 33, subtitle 17, chapter 2. It's regulation 01, and 3 separate parts of regulation 02. But before you can approve those regulations, in order to effectuate this, the board will need to first pass a motion to suspend the requirements of election law 10-301.1C, which requires each early voting center to be designated no later than 6 months before a primary election. And you have the authority to do this under the governor's emergency declaration of suspension authority to agencies with regard to deadlines and timeframes in the statutes they administer. And this is outlined in the governor's emergency order dated June 19th, which I did not send around, but it is, it's section 3 of that executive order. And it's one that Andrea has referenced many times in meetings that we've had recently. So first you need a motion to suspend the requirements of election law 10-301.1C. And then if you agree to that, then you can vote on the regulations in 33-1702.
Okay. Any discussion on this? This is the one that we addressed in the last meeting. Hearing none.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to make the motion to suspend the requirements of election law, section 10-301.1(c).
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mike, before you do that, I would also ask the board to include a direction to the administrator and her staff to prepare a public notice of the suspension that will promptly be posted on the website of the Board of Elections and provided to the Office of the Governor just as notification of the suspension. That's also something that the executive order at issue requires. And so once this is effectuated by the board, it should also direct the staff to do that.
And let the staff take all administrative requirements to effectuate the suspension of this regulation. Will that do, Andre?
I think so. Yes, no.
Second.
PJ, second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? None. Motion carried.
Thank you. So that's part one.
And Chair would then entertain a motion to approve the proposed changes to Comar 33-1702 as proposed by the staff.
So moved. This is Bill Bell as
Moved.
presented.
Second?
PJ Hogan, second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are we ready to go? Getting a sense we're not ready to go.
Dave Garris has a comment on the chat function that says he's here, but the webinar dashboard says he's muted by the organizer. So just want to make sure those who need to see that are seeing it.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. We're having some people trying to help them.
Hi, can you hear me?
So,
All right, let's move on to another.
yes. Hold on, Mike, he's there. David?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
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 All right, great. Good to hear.
Okay, Dave. We know you wanted to speak, and we do have your letter dated today, and so you have comments about the letter, and then comments that you were going to address separately. You may want to just roll them all into one set and give us your thoughts on this.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I'm here today to discuss recommendations from the local boards of elections regarding the conduct of the 2020 general election. The state is at a critical juncture in the election process. We have slightly more than 90 days before election day. I think today is day 91. The election community must have a set in stone plan for the general election. We want to make it clear to the State Board of Elections that we need to have the process for this election in place. Time is running out. We're only 3 months from election day. Failure to give us some of the tools that we need to be successful is going to put the outcome of the entire election in doubt. Mayo is providing our recommendations as professionals and in a nonpartisan manner. We want to be clear that we don't have a partisan, a dog in the partisan fight, so to speak. We're dedicated to providing all eligible voters with the ability to cast their ballot in a safe and secure manner. So we're making our final appeal to your decision-making authority before we enter a period where there is no more time to change how we're going to do this election. So our recommendations, we have 4 key recommendations that we're confident will provide the voters with a hassle-free opportunity to vote, either by mail, during the election, during early voting, or on election day. So number 1 is vote centers. Nearly all 24 local boards are suffering a severe shortage of election judges, and this constitutes an emergency situation. Later in this meeting, you will be considering consolidation plans from several local boards, including my local board, Anne Arundel County. Given the election judge shortages, including 14,832, which is an increase of 1,303 vacancies since the governor released his letter to state employees. The election judge problem is a significant failure point for the general election. Regarding COVID-19, the local election community looks at it as a high impact, high probability risk. that the COVID-19, the public health crisis, is going to worsen in September and October, and election judges will begin to quit en masse. We're already experiencing it right now in August. We feel the trend is going to continue and accelerate as we enter the fall. And once the majority of the election judges quit, there's not going to be a backup. So this is a critical problem for the local boards. That's why we want to switch to vote centers. A vote center is what we're considering the super center of polling places. We would take the largest facilities available in the jurisdiction, equip them with scanners, ballot marking devices, and check-in stations to scale, as well as privacy booths. And due to the economies of scale, using a large building with lots of equipment, we'll be able to run the election more efficiently while maintaining social distancing and public health priorities. So that's our first recommendation. We recommend that each county run at least the equivalent to the number of early voting sites in each county as a vote center, plus 2. So you have the option. So you would have the option of adding at least 2 more sites if you needed to in the county. This will give us the ability to manage the lines. We also recommend operating the vote centers from October 29th through Election Day on November 3rd. So that would constitute early voting and Election Day in one process. Central voting. We also recommend the establishment of a centralized vote-by-mail application processing center. The largest jurisdictions, such as Montgomery County, receive more than 30,000 vote-by-mail applications already. This constitutes a much higher rate of interest in mail-in voting than we've experienced at this point in previous elections. LBEs are going to have to bring in more staff members to process all of these applications. This is going to make maintaining social distance policies difficult, if not impossible, in what are largely small offices throughout the state. So again, to maximize the economies of scale, we recommend creating a centralized location where applications are received and processed, and then requests are made, absentee ballots are sent to the vendor for being mailed to the voters. And as always, Mayo is willing to help assist with SBE with the logistics of implementing such a facility. Canvassing ballots returned by the voters within 30 days before Election Day. So this is based on the experience that the local boards of elections have from the primary election. We're going to need time to process and canvass all of the ballots that are returned. Right now, state law has the canvass beginning on Thursday, November 5th. If we begin opening the ballots at that point, it's going to turn into a mess. The results it's going to take a month for the results to get the final tally of the results. However, if we can implement the process that we used during the primary election, where we begin opening the ballots 30 days before Election Day, so around October 5th, we will be able to release results on election night and complete the rest of the ballots, canvassing the rest of the ballots in a timely manner by the absentee to canvass deadline, which is November 13th. You talked about adjusting the vote by mail application deadline by 1 week. The local boards of elections recommend moving the deadline for the application to receive ballots forward by 1 week. Previous experience has taught us that voters will wait till the last minute to submit their absentee ballot request. We feel that the current deadline, which is October 27th, is cutting it too close to the margins. If we get 60% of our application for a vote by mail ballot on the 27th, that will not leave enough time for the local boards to process all of the requests and generate the ballots and get them in the mail to the voters. And it won't leave the voters enough time to get their ballot and then mail it back to us. So we strongly recommend changing that date and moving the application deadline to October 21st. So those are the four proposals that the Maryland Association of Election Officials has developed. Thank you for considering them. We would like to remind the board one final time that the success or failure of this election is in your hands. Delay in adoption of these policies and procedures for the conduct of the election will have catastrophic consequences for the 2020 presidential general election in Maryland. With 90 days until Election Day, this is your final opportunity to adjust course and save the election process in Maryland. So, thank you.
Okay, stay on the line, Dave. Questions?
Certainly.
Questions by the board members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is PJ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dave, on the very first
I'm
one,
going over my words. You did.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't like it. Easy, got it. Yeah.
David, your audio is still turned on.
Well, David, can you hear me? I need to ask him a question.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, on the first item, the vote centers, I just want to be clear, I understand the request. You're requesting the total number of authorized early vote sites per county +2 for each county.
Correct. So if Prince George's County had 11 sites, they could go up to 13. Anne Arundel has 7, it could go up to 9. And many of the small counties, which might have 1 early voting site, they could go up to 3.
So it's somewhat a percentage based because the number of vote sites authorized are based on population. Is that the
Correct.
most? Okay, so you just said, for instance, Prince George's County they're authorized for how many currently?
I believe their total number of early voting sites is 11. So,
Okay, so 13. Do you think Prince George's County Board of Elections can fully staff 13? Could they staff more? I understand your request, and I just wonder whether 13 is enough.
We believe it is. We're also protecting against the fact that at this moment, we're experiencing a drop off in our election judges. We're anticipating, planning for the real risk that you're going to see a massive drop off in October and September as this coronavirus outbreak continues, or the second wave, what have you, continues. The election judges keep dropping out. Many of them say they want to do it. They agree to do it, and then they think about it, or they talk to their families, and their families say, you're taking your life in your hands to be an election judge. You know, you're going to risk your health and your well-being and even your life to serve as an election judge. And many people are deciding, no, that's not a trade-off that they're willing to make. So,
What is the total? This is a question for either David or SB staff. What is the total number of early voting sites as authorized?
I believe it's 79. 79, and then maybe 80 with Carol. Aaron, does that sound right? It's either 79 or 80.
Yeah, Nikki, and I can pull up that spreadsheet if you give me a minute, but it's about that.
Well, the reason I asked the question, because under, and I hate to do this, under one of these spreadsheets that we were sent, the one for EV summary that has the judges required, assigned, vacant, all that. When they get to polling places, this is for early voting, that column, you have a total of 99. But the bizarre thing is Dorchester is listed as 21.
They might have
Can't be
listed
right.
their days,
They're okay.
not their sites.
That's why I asked the question. So 80, and if we authorize an additional 2 per county, so that's 128 roughly total. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And Mayo is confident, well, as much confidence as you can have. And I'm not being nasty about that, because you're in the most difficult position. You can adequately staff with judges and, staff 128 voting sites,
Yes.
whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Anyone else? Questions?
I have some questions, if that's okay. So I would like to first comment on the first point, which is the vote centers, and again say that I was definitely in favor of, although I had a little bit different numbers in mind. But I think to me today, it's a moot point, because our board does not have the authority. We've already made that recommendation to the governor. The governor has made his decision. We don't have the authority under anything that I have seen to do vote centers versus consolidation that we're looking at today. So based on not having the authority, I don't want to spend the time querying Mr. Gary's about the numbers. So I would instead like to go on with some other questions to some of these other great ideas that Mayo has. So if I could start at the end, the deadline, are you proposing that the deadline for both in electronically delivered and mail ballots be moved back to the 21st? Because right now there's a 3-day delta, 27 to 30 October, for requesting of an absentee ballot.
This is for the mailing the physical ballots, the paper ballots.
I do believe this is within our purview to do. I think we should take this up. I would propose that we move both the dates to be the same day, rather than the confusion of moving a date and having an electronic one that we're going to try to process, whether it's in county or in a central location, and do that within just a few days of election day. So that's something that I think we should take up. I think it will drive more people to vote in person. So there's a trade-off there, right? Because like you said, a lot of people are going to wait to the last minute. They wait to the last minute. Now they can't get an electronic delivered ballot or a mail ballot. So that's going to drive them. That's going to drive the in-person voting on election day up. I move up to the next point. If under the current scenario where you have presented, I sat in on your meeting. It was very, very good the other day, to consolidate vote centers, and you're running early voting and running the 100 and whatever vote precincts or vote polling places. Would you be able to at the same time canvass prior to election day?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question, again, because the vote centers I feel like is not in our ability. Really, my question more is to Nikki and Linda, this idea of a centralized processing center for the processing of applications for a mail ballot. Is that doable? Is this something that it would be very, very difficult.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I'm working on it. We contacted to see if any of our sister agencies have the capacity to provide it. We're looking into logistics of doing it. We'll need to get extra Citrix licenses. There'll be other expenses, probably in excess of $100,000 that will be incurred to set something up. We have other logistics like how do we get the applications to the data center from the counties? Because we have to make the decision this week for the printer and the envelope printer as to the return address on them. So we're looking at all the angles. I hope to hear something hopefully this week, whether or not one of our sister agencies will be able to step up and help us out with these.
Thank you. Those were my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, by the way, Mr. Gary's.
To follow up on something that Bill asked to Linda, how would that affect all of those requests that have already come in? Would the local board respond to those requests for ballots, or could they be processed at a centralized location as well?
Malcolm, I assume you are referring to the request for an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot that we've already received? Yes. No, they'll be handled directly by the mail house. The local boards have already got them. So this is not another step.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a few questions, Dave. My first question, and please don't take this amiss. Is this recommendation unanimous, or is it a majority consensus?
The mail recommendation is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. The vote centers. So you wanted the number of vote centers in the jurisdiction. As we know, in the larger jurisdictions, they have a certain number of voting centers that are designated, and then they have an option to increase them. And did you add those two numbers together to come up with when you were saying the number of voting centers in early, in as early voting sites? What I'm trying to get to is we have base number, we have the statutory optional number, and then what I believe is mail is requesting two beyond that. Is that correct?
Correct. So it takes the number of existing early voting centers in each location, each jurisdiction, and gives them the option of adding two more. The reason we want that flexibility is that you have some local boards, some of your small local boards only have one vote center. And for a county that might have a lot of population in one area and then need a second vote center to service an area that's further away but less populated, we didn't want to close the door on that.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure. So we're talking about the base number plus the statutory options is what you're defining as existing early voting sites. And then you want to add two more to them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Why only two? Why not more?
When we discussed it, there's a limit to the number of buildings that are going to be feasible for this. In particular, buildings like high schools. That's primarily going to be the target location for the vote centers. I can't say that 100% through the state, but most of the local boards are going to be housing these in high schools if they can. Also is the availability of the election judges. We don't want to promise more than we can deliver. We don't want to establish too many sites and then not have the staff in order to have them function, have them open.
Yeah, I'm not trying to second guess you. I'm actually trying to think of ways to increase the flexibility for the local boards. And I'm not talking about the smaller counties here. You've already done that, the 2 voting center option. But the larger counties, where they may say, well, you know, we could actually use 3. And I'm thinking of a place like Montgomery, which is both populous and physically, geographically extensive. And I know you've already told me this is unanimous decision, but the question to Mayo is, if we authorize optional, doesn't mean you have to use them, but would you like the flexibility to have more?
David, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ultimately, I think that it depends how many more. If you're going to give the discretion to the local board, if you are saying 3 more instead of 2 more, I think that level of flexibility is fine. What we don't want is a situation where, again, where the county gets into a situation where they have more vote centers than they can handle.
And I agree with you on that. It's the last thing any of us want. But in order to do this, we would have to seek further authority. And if we're going to do that, we absolutely only want to do it once. And so if this board is willing to approve this section of the plan, then we want, I believe, it's implicit in that decision that we want to provide the local boards as much flexibility as they think appropriate. So, you know, from our perspective, I believe asking for 2 optional or 3 optional or 4 optional almost doesn't make a difference. It obviously makes a difference on the ground, but it does not make a difference if we're going down this particular road. If a county, big county, obviously, one of the big counties says, you know, I think I can do that, and I'd like to plan for it, then we would need to know that up front, so that this thing is done and it's out, it's in your hands. And that's the only reason that I asked those questions. So
to answer your question, flexibility would be good. I think that if we can get this accomplished, and we don't want to make don't want to limit ourselves at this point, flexibility is good. It will give the local boards the ability to judge the situation as it develops, which would be a benefit because we are in a fluid situation.
I think we'll probably come back to this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
This PJ, while we're on this is probably going to sound off the wall, but what else is new? Do you know how many, because David mentioned one of the things they're targeting are high schools because of their size, and high schools generally have, you know, large gyms, large cafeterias, you know, they've got probably the largest meeting areas of facilities that we have hopefully have access to, as opposed to private institutions. There are 282 public high schools in the state of Maryland. And I'm sure that is somewhat based on the population of high school students. Okay, obviously. And they're generally well located, you know, so students and parents can get to those high schools. I know I asked Mr. Garris before, could you staff 128? I have a new question. You think there's any chance you could staff 282? You know, could we have a voting center at every public high school in the state of Maryland?
With a tentatively, yes, we could, because you'd still be able to take advantage of the efficiencies of scale for your election judges. However, there's a couple points to that. I know there are some Eastern Shore counties which are going to have their students report to school. I believe it. You know, Wycomico County might be one, some of the other shore counties as well. So we might not have, those counties might not have access to the high schools that some of the metro area school districts have. For instance, specifically about Anne Arundel County, and I believe Howard County is also in this basket. We are planning to use our high schools because they're not going to be used by the students. So we're working with our Board of Education right now to line that up. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a very fair point. But I don't have the data in front of me. I mean, I believe probably
to answer
the big
your
seven,
question,
the big eight are not starting school in person. I think we're
Correct.
getting close to that.
So I think that to answer your question with the, yes, the big eight probably could, yes. And I think that would be the preferred way to do it.
And
Especially in metro area counties.
The big eight are most often the ones with the longest lines.
Correct.
Because of the sheer volume of the population.
Correct.
282 just sounds a lot better to me. And, you know, there's, like I said, it's a reach, but it's some kind of alignment, well below the 1,858 total precincts. But it's still a lot of places that people can go and vote. And they're large.
The benefit, as you mentioned, the benefit is you have the largest rooms, largest parking lot. Also, high schools tend to be the most visible of the schools. They tend to be larger. They're easy for people to find because they tend to be centrally located in any given area because of all the feeder schools. Also, they also tend to be on public transit lines, so that would help alleviate one of the issues that folks with limited transportation options might be facing.
And PJ, in reference to what you're stating, using all high schools in all the counties, some counties, like the one I'm in, is a small county. We have 4 high schools. We don't need the 4 high schools for the number of registered voters. You know, we could use 2 because when we have early voting center, we only used 1 in the past, 1 location, which was the office of the LBE. But see, some counties could do with less than all of the high schools. So it may not need 200. But it's a good idea to use high schools because of all universities.
I hear you. To the chairman's point earlier, but we only want to do this once. You know, so we're actually, and to Mr. Volp's point earlier, we can't do this. But this board could make a recommendation to the governor that there be up to 282 voting centers. Maybe we set a floor also, but that, you know, that something up to 282.
That would help the local boards quite a bit.
Okay, let me note a couple of other things here. And by the way, we're going to lose one of our board members, and in about 10 minutes, I'm going to take a break in this discussion and set further meetings, as painful as that may be. And I did use the plural. Dave, may I assume that if the board was willing to make this request and in the hopes that it would be approved, that this would obviate all of the co-location consolidation requests?
Yes,
Okay.
the vote centers will supplant the election day polling places.
Okay. Now, this is kind of the state board staff as well. Technologically, if we operate voting centers like this, how does that work for us? Polling books, that sort of thing. Have we got the tech capability to run these things straight through?
So I believe that Shafiq is on the line. So Ebony, could you please unmute Shafiq?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Good afternoon. From a technological standpoint, can this be done? Yes, it can. There are a number of hurdles that we'd have to overcome. So, for example, right from the outset, new facilities is going to prompt the local boards to have to go out and do a series of testing. Cellular health, stability, things of that nature, to ensure that we can set up and work with that location. It's not really a technical thing, but also something to bear in mind would be some of the aspects related to election law, whether, for example, on election day, how do we handle address change? Something like that would be something that's not really technical, but something to just be cognizant of. What I would say is one of the things that would be very significant, there would be a lot of back end work that we would have to work through with the poll book team and at SBE because there would be some significant changes with this approach. Again, not saying that it couldn't be done, but there would be some things that we would have to work through and test. To give you kind of an example of what I'm getting at, when we, in a quote unquote normal election, you have early voting, and then you have what's called a bulk update that occurs prior to election day. In this format, we would not have that bulk update. There would be no time for that to occur. There would be process changes that would have to be put in place for that data to be transmitted back and forth. That would be a change that we would have to test and would have to implement along with other back-end changes. So that's just an example. So can it be done? Yes, it can. Is it easy? No, we have to work through it to make it work.
Shafiq, can you get it done in the next couple of months?
I knew that question was coming, Mr. Crockett. Yes, I'm very confident in the team's capabilities to get it done. I would say one other thing, just as a nugget, when I talk about some of these changes, is how things are processed as far as transactions on the electronic poll book. One of the things that we would have to take internally and discuss is how transactions are taken across during that quote unquote early voting period compared to like election day. And that's really just about logging transactions. Again, some of the features or flags that are enabled or disabled. So we'd have to work through that from a technical standpoint to know what the approach would be going forward.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, we could accomplish it.
All right. Any other questions for Shafiq? Okay. Shafiq, thank you very much. And by the way, I'm not pointing any fingers at any of my colleagues, but I noticed that when the tech guy got on, the system worked flawlessly. So just pointing that out. Shafiq, thank you. Is Dave still on the line?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, Dave. And actually, this may be less an issue for you than it is otherwise. Assuming we would move to approve this plan, do we need to put something in the application that we're sending out? Hey, if you've already sent in something, don't send it in again.
So if
Yeah,
I might
anytime.
jump in,
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
then the application that you just approved today is not going to be sent to someone who's already submitted it. So we
Okay.
are going to pull those people out of the data file, so they will not receive a second one.
Got it. That answers it. Okay. Anybody else have anything for Mr. Garris? Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you and the organization.
Here's where we are. We're going to lose Mr. Velp here in a few minutes. Not before we set more dates for meetings, but we're going to lose him in a few minutes. And I think we have a number of things that we're going to have to address here. I'm going to propose, and I know that the staff, whenever this happens, they get this strangled look on their face. We're not out of time, but we're all but out of time. We need to pull this stuff together. We need to make a decision on it, and we need to transmit that decision. Assuming it is a decision to approve this, we're going to need to request authority to do these things. We all know this. So what I'm looking at is how do, from the position of the 5 board members, how do we contribute to a rapid progression on this line to a decision, whether our decision be, no, we're not going to follow this plan, we're going to do something else, or yes, we're going to follow the plan, in which case, by definition, we need additional authority, and that's got to get transmitted. So I'm asking that we meet again, and anybody can speak up, staff or member, maybe Friday, no later than Monday.
Does that provide enough notice time to, how many hours notice, Mr. Trento, do we need to provide? We can't hear you.
Andrea, you're
muted.
You're muted.
There's a bylaws issue with regard to whether votes can be taken at meetings. So I think for Friday, there's not enough. No, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I can't remember if it's 48 hours or longer, but even if it's 48 hours, assuming the Friday meeting is not scheduled for 5 p.m., then I think we don't have the time. So from that perspective, I think Monday would be preferable, but I'm going to pull up the bylaws right now to make sure.
Can we change the bylaws? Or do we have to do 48 hours notice to do that too? Can we declare an emergency meeting?
You can declare an emergency meeting. This is a different issue with the bylaws. I think that we've encountered this before. There needs to be the administrator can poll the members. It's a workaround that we've done in the past on an emergency basis. We can proceed in that regard again, but it's unorthodox, I think would be the way to say it.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. We're going to be in a situation where we're either going to approve this plan or we're not. If we approve this plan, we've got to submit something to the governor, and I believe that we can prepare that request on the basis of a polling of the board. And I know that council will want us to follow that up as soon as possible thereafter with a formal vote. Even though, as I have noted in the previous instance, my belief that would be a pro forma exercise, but nevertheless, we can do that, belt and suspenders. I'm I share PJ's concerns. You know, I've been going through my own, and frankly, I'm telling this to people that share everything is with me. There's not a person I'm looking at on here who's not got deep concerns about this election, and I know that. So I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but I do share those concerns. I don't necessarily share the precise fix that PJ does, but I like this plan. And Mayo came in and they came in unanimously behind it. And it looks like a plan that would work. And it's something that if we can agree unanimously, you know, or at least 4-1, and I'm not picking anybody out. I'm just saying by our bylaws, it's got to be 4. That we can make this recommendation, then it's incumbent on us, I think, to do that and to do whatever we need to do to get this thing rolling, to get it into other people's hands, other decision makers' hands, and let it become a reality. PJ spoke to us from the heart. I do similarly at this point. And I will tell you something else. I don't ever go into something and expect to fail. I expect to go in and win. And I intend to win in this as well. That's me personally. I don't think it's different for anybody else here. So what I'm suggesting is we give a couple of days to pull this thing together, the minimum amount of time. We get together, we've thought about it, we have a single focus on the agenda, we get this thing nailed down one way or the other, and then we get that thing out and we get it off. And the only thing that causes me any concern actually is a staff-related one, which is if we take until Friday for our next meeting, is that too late? Linda or Nikki? I saw you both look up. Does that take too much time?
We can't wait till next Wednesday. We got to get moving. I mean, next Friday.
This Friday.
Oh, this Friday. Yeah, this Friday's fine. Next Friday is not.
Pardon? Is fine. Okay.
And Aaron it emailed me, if you're going to change the deadline for the ballots based on the post office advice, she needs to know that ASAP. So can you add that, Mr. Chairman, to your high priority decision list for the next meeting?
Yes.
Aaron, are you okay if we wait till Friday?
I have to get this to the vendor tomorrow or today, and then I have to also get it to Spanish translation. So the sooner the better.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The absolute one thing I think we have to put to bed today is that absentee mail-in, application.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to delay it. I don't want to be chastised by the governor anymore for a delay in getting it out. Linda's letter back to the governor, lays out the timeline of when it would go to the printer, when it would be mailed. I don't want to delay that by an hour. So I'm pleading that we do everything in our power to get that done right now. The voting centers, that can wait a little. I understand it needs to be done, but what's the one thing we have to do right now? And that is the application for the absentee mail-in ballot. And that's what I don't want anything to hold up.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, real quick, this is Bill, and when we set this meeting up, I have a doctor's appointment tonight and we'll need to leave now. I agree with PJ wholeheartedly. I agree with the moving the date, I would match them up together to not confuse people and move it back by Mayo's. I would agree with Mayo's take on that. Just so you know my sentiment as I leave. I'm also, in general, agree with their plan. But even if, so this is all an act in futility if the governor does not change his thinking. So, we have to, I think, still be marching along on looking at consolidation, even if we go to the governor and say we prefer to have vote centers. I think in his last letter, we see, I'm not sure that the governor's in favor of that. So, but I'm in favor of what PJ just said, 100%. I very much agree to get this voted on, get the date set today, and get that moving. So Ms. Perone can do her job. And I would just caution us about making sure we set the meeting up properly so we can vote if it's Friday, so we can legally vote on something. I am available Friday or Monday for that meeting. Earlier the better. So if it takes longer, we don't run across, evening problems with times. That's my thinking. And with that, I'm going to have to sign out so I make it to the doctor in time.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay. We have 4 members. We can take action. So what are we looking at this point, Aaron? I love when you do that. Your eyes get really wide. Nikki, what action do we need to take now to get this thing moving? What do we specifically need to do?
Well, if you are considering changing the deadline to request a mail-in ballot, that needs to be done today because that is on the mailer.
Okay. So, remaining board members, do we want to, that's a week, right? We moved it a week?
Mayo proposed moving the deadline. So right now, let me step back. So right now there are 2 deadlines for requesting a ballot by a mail-in ballot. The Tuesday before Election Day is the deadline if you want to get your ballot by mail. The Friday before the election is the deadline if you want to get your ballot electronically. So Mayo proposed, with the clarification from David Garris, that they were proposing to move that 1 week before deadline, that if you want your ballot by mail, moving that deadline back a week. So that would be 2 weeks before Election Day.
A correction, Nikki. He asked for the 21st. The 20th would be 1 week.
Oh, okay,
21st.
sorry. I don't have a calendar. Okay.
Yeah. Because it's 27th now, a week prior to that would be the 20th of October. Maybe that's what we should speak, the week.
That's correct. That's 2 weeks before.
Nikki, this is Linda. Isn't that consistent with what the post office recommended?
Yeah, they were about a week before, I think.
Yeah.
And then what Bill was proposing was that the 21st or the 20th, whichever date you all want, would be the deadline for all requests, regardless of how the ballot is delivered. So you want your ballot by mail, your deadline is the 20th or 21st. You want your ballot by web delivery, your deadline is the 20th or 21st. So it aligns the deadlines.
I think that would prevent less confusion. And if they don't get it in by then they have to go and vote in person.
Or their alternative is to go to the local board of elections and pick up a ballot. There would be an in-person process for doing that.
Okay. All right. How do the other 3 of you feel about this?
I vote for the 20th, October 20th.
Okay.
I asked, well, for both dates, for the
Both dates, yes.
Yeah.
Kelly?
I agree.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to change the dates for the request for a mail-in ballot to October the 20th for this election, whether the ballot is requested electronically or by mail. And I think that's about it. May I have such a motion? And is that motion going to do it?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. One abstention. I guess, actually, he wanted it, but, in any event, the motion carries. That's done.
So Mike, let me jump in here. I believe that those, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe that those are, Aaron, stop me if I'm wrong, but I believe those are regulatory deadlines. So I think what the board needs to do is make emergency changes. I think we have a sense of the board, and Aaron can proceed as necessary with the application. But I think we need to make emergency changes to the regulations to reflect those new deadlines.
Yes, and they are regulation changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to, Andrea, would you like us to formally poll the board on this?
I'm sorry, just hold on for just, it's in code. It may be in regulations, but it's in code. It's
Are you sure?
9-305 C.
I see, yeah. Okay, so then what needs to happen then is the same thing that we did for the other deadline that was changed. This is a deadline that the board has the authority to suspend under the governor's executive order from June 19th that Tracy referenced earlier. So again, we will need to prepare a notice of this change, post the notice, and then submit it to the governor.
And we already voted on it, so that part's done, correct?
Well, this is Tracy, clarified, the motion you said was for the date. Andrea, do they have to do a separate motion to suspend the regulations?
Well, I think they're suspending the statute. And so what I think the effective vote should be is to suspend the deadline set forth in section 9305 B and B1 and B2, it looks like. And then what happens is the effect of that is to essentially just draw a line through them. They don't exist anymore. And so then the board has a blank slate on which to prescribe a deadline that it sees fit by regulation or by policy to substitute for the ones that have been suspended under the statute.
Okay. So in keeping with Tracy's comment, do we need to vote to suspend the statute? We already kind of voted, change the date, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then what we would do is then follow up with with directive to the administrator and her staff to provide notice of the suspension on the website and to the governor.
Okay. All right. Then in that event, what's the statute number?
It's section 9305 B1 and B2.
All right. So,
and to be clear, that's for the request for the ballot to be sent by mail or fax. That's B1, and B2 is the request for the ballot to be sent by the internet. B3, just so everybody's aware, is the in-person application, and that is the deadline for that is no later than the closing of the polls on election day. And I understand the board to wish to leave that alone.
Yes.
So I'm just going to clarify. It's 9-305. I have it as C, Andrea, not B.
Yeah. Yeah, it is C. I apologize.
Okay.
C1 and 2?
C1 and 2.
Yeah.
So
9-305, C1, and C2.
Okay, so then I believe the chair would entertain a motion to suspend election law 9305 B1 and 2 and direct the administrator to file appropriate notices of that suspension. That works?
PJ, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. So we have a suspension, we have a directive, and we set a date, even though we did it in a different order. Okay. With that, and given where we are in terms of the election, with the board's members' approval, I would like to table agenda item number 5 until our next meeting. And that is the approval of early voting election day polling place site changes. Because our next meeting may result in those becoming overcome by events.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, if we adopt some version of the Mayo plan related to the voting sites, then number 5 becomes somewhat of a moot point.
Kelly, Malcolm, how do you feel about it? You okay with?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. So the chair will table agenda item number 5 at this time. Just trying to get this stuff squared away. We have old business. We have the letter responding to the NAACP. Members have, this is item number 7 under old business. The members have received a copy of that and a draft response. Is there any discussion about that? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve sending the letter as drafted.
This is PJ, so moved.
Second,
Second, Malcolm.
and moved and seconded. All in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Motion carries. Letter's approved. No new business.
Mr. Chairman,
Did I forget?
to talk a little bit about web delivery. And I know there's a terrible echo. Sounds like I'm drunk. I'm not. But I'll be quick.
No, take your time. Take your time.
Okay, I just wanted to know if we could get regular updates as this number grows. It's almost 40,000 as of July 31. If staff could give us those updates so we can follow.
Kelly, this is Tracy. I can answer that. Yes, we can provide that, whatever interval you want. I don't know, weekly or?
Weekly would be good.
Okay, so those were from, as of last Friday?
July 31.
Yeah, they were, well, I guess you received them on the 30th, well, they're probably through the 30th, I guess, or earlier than day on the 31st, but yes, we can provide that data, every Monday.
Okay, my other question, do we have a message on the website yet to discourage people from choosing internet delivery?
So we had the standard one, but now with the changes to the application that you made today on the paper version, we will incorporate those into the online process of requesting it.
Okay, that's great. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Sorry,
Mr. Chair, this is Linda. I have to sign off.
yes,
I
ma'am.
have an engagement at 5:30, so is that all right with you?
Before Linda leaves?
Yeah.
Can I just?
Yep.
Okay, so based on I just want to be 100% crystal clear on this. Based on the actions we've taken, everything you said in your letter, your response to the governor of August 4th, with those, that timeline can now be accomplished. Right? Yes or no?
Nikki?
Yeah, so Aaron, right, we're on track now. We'll make the date change. That was the only, we'll clean up based on the approval, but yes, everything is still on track.
Okay. Just, thank you.
Thank you, PJ.
Bye, Linda.
Yep, take care. Okay, next item, agenda item number 9, disclosure campaign contributions. Anyone have anything to disclose?
I have one, $250 to Congressman Rupersberger.
Okay, I've got several. McConnell for Senate, $30. McSally for Senate, $30. National Republican Senatorial Campaign, $105, 2 donations. And one donation, 2 donations, but that's a bit much. And the National Republican Congressional Committee, $30. Anybody else? Okay, next meeting. We know that from our discussion, we want to try and meet on Friday. And Bill indicated he was available on Friday, so I think it comes down to the 4 of us as to what might work.
Mr. Chairman, not to give you a heart attack, but I'm leaving tomorrow and I won't be back until the 14th. But I have a cell phone and I can call in.
Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
I mean, I know we have this, you know, I suppose I should be waving at the camera thing there. We have this video thing, but, you know, hearing your voice will be more than adequate.
Well, I'll do my best. I'll be traveling with my IT guy, so he'll do a better job than he did today.
You should be right. You'll be good.
I will be on Pacific time, so I'll be 3 hours behind you.
So we want to make it for what time? Maybe it's some local for you, sometime after 8. 0800 local for you. Does that work?
Let me think. Friday, I'm driving between 7 and 10. So the earliest would be 11. So 2 o'clock I could do.
I can't do before 1:30.
Well, there we go. There we go.
2 o'clock is fine if that works.
Malcolm, are you good for the afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll clear my calendar for that. This is more important than anything else.
1:30 work for you? Let me rephrase that. Does 10:30 local Pacific work for you, Kelly?
11:30 Pacific?
I said 10:30, but.
Oh, 10:30? That's cutting it a little close.
Okay. Local, what time would you like?
11. That should give me an hour's cushion.
Well, that's our normal time for meeting at 2 o'clock.
Right,
Hey,
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock Eastern.
To get to our normal time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're being so accommodating, Kelly.
We'll all do it for 2, and Kelly, you'll do it for 11.
I'll set my alarm.
Okay, so we're set for Friday, 7 August at 1400 Eastern time, 1100 Pacific time. All right. With that, the chair will gratefully accept a motion to adjourn. Please?
So moved, sorry. Second.
Second. Move and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Even the staff I can't see, thank you.